You're welcome back. Now, his Irish grandmother was a gifted seer and healer, so perhaps it was no surprise that John Lockley ended up following in her footsteps.
After spending 10 years training in difficult circumstances in one of the poorest townships in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, he became one of the first white men to be initiated as a traditional shaman. And John joins us now to tell us more. Now, we're saying traditional shaman, John, yes, but it's Sangoma.
Sangoma, that's the South African word, Sangoma. Sangoma means, it's a Zulu word, it means people of the song, because we go into trance using song and dance. Now that's a Zulu word, but I'm part of the Xhosa culture, the same tribe as Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, and there's lots of clicks which people find difficult to articulate. So I'm known as a Iqricha.
Yeah, because I've heard a couple of clicks just in the last 30 seconds.
I'm known as an Iqricha, which is the same as a Sangoma.
How do you make that clicking noise? As simple as that.
Okay. Well, for anyone out there, I mean, I never really heard of a Sangoma or actually a shaman. I mean, what are they exactly? They're traditional healers, is that right?
A Sangoma, or you could say traditional shaman, is someone who is a healer, is a dreamer, someone who has prophetic dreams. And it's basically the traditional priests of Southern Africa are known as Sangomas. And our job is to be intermediaries between the spirit world and the community. So, for example, if famines are about to come and the people have to prepare themselves for famine, then the spirits or the ancestors will send dreams to the shamans, the medicine people, because we're known as the medicine people. They'll send dreams to us so that we can help the people prepare themselves for adversity.
Okay. Now, your grandmother, you were raised in South Africa, but your grandmother is Irish.
My mother's Irish.
Your mother's Irish?
My mother's from Dublin, yes.
Okay, but it's your grandmother that is this link because she would have had some of these prophetic dreams.
Yes, she actually dreamt about the fall of apartheid in the 1960s. Okay. And she told my mother to prepare herself and buy a house in Dublin. But she didn't. I wish she had.
So she prophesied that in the early 60s when apartheid was really kicking in.
Yes, it was. And my grandmother was very worried about my mother living in South Africa, and she always made it known, make sure the boys have their Irish passports in case something happens. However, my mother didn't know about racism and treating black people any different. So I was brought up in a bit of a cocoon, not really knowing that, or treating people, black people, as less than. So it was really thanks to my mother and my father that I was brought up in an egalitarian kind of way, not looking down upon African people as less than or not as equal to white people. But unfortunately, that was definitely the status quo during apartheid, which was a very, very difficult time.
Now, not everybody can become a shaman or a Sangoma. You have to have these dreams. And you started having them when you were, about 18 or 19, was it?
I was 16 when I started with the dreams. And people always ask me, how did I become a Sangoma? And I always say, well, my journey started in Dublin in the 1950s. And everyone thinks that's quite strange and quite quirky. But my mother used to have dreams about African elephants. And she listened to those dreams, and she left Dublin and she went to Zimbabwe, which was then Rhodesia. And that's where she met my father, and they fell in love with the African bush, and they're still there now. And it's interesting because the African elephant is the symbol for the healers, for the Sangoma people. We're known as the elephant people.
So when you started having these prophetic dreams yourself, you then went into this spell where you'd be quite ill.
Yes, you get what we call the twaza, or the healing illness, or the Sangoma illness. And it's a very extreme illness that brings you sometimes close to death, and high fevers, a great loss of weight. I mean, I got so thin I could feel my ribs. I could bring my hands up inside my ribs, and it was very difficult for my mother and father, and I went to all the top surgeons and specialists in South Africa, but no one could help me. However, I knew it was the calling illness without anyone telling me, because I saw it in the dreams. The dreams are very, very specific. It's not just dreaming, as we all know about dreaming, but shown specific things in the dreams that would actually happen in reality.
But could you not have saved your mother and father an awful lot of time and money and stress by saying, listen, I've had these dreams, let me go through this, I'm going to be fine?
I wanted to, but it was apartheid. So being a white person, I wasn't allowed in the townships. Otherwise, I would have been arrested. At that stage, I was 18 years old, and I was in the South African Army when it started. And so what my dreams guided me to do was to actually practice meditation. And I was led to South Korea and I worked with Zen masters in South Korea. So I was treated with Chinese medicine, which helped me a great deal. And then I was given the option of becoming a Zen monk. They asked me if I wanted to become a Zen monk, and I declined because I felt the African calling so strongly. So I went back to South Africa and I enrolled back in my university to finish my degree. And when I was studying health psychology, I did a module in the township, and apartheid had just fallen. And that's when we were doing AIDS awareness campaigns in the township, because a lot of people were dying of AIDS.
Right.
And I spoke to one of the interpreters who was Xhosa, and I asked him if I could have an interview with a traditional healer, a Sangoma. And he agreed, he organized it for me. And the night before I met my teacher-to-be, she had a dream that the great spirit Utikko came to her in the dream and said that she must prepare herself to train someone to become a senior Sangoma like her, and that this person was going to come from another culture. So the next day when I came through her gate, I was with my friend, my Xhosa Sangoma, my Xhosa interpreter friend, and my girlfriend at the time. And my teacher looked at me and she said I was the one she had to train. And then when we sat down and she gave me a divination, she started talking about the last 7 years of my life and all the difficulties that I'd gone through with great accuracy. And it was the first time that I'd seen her.
Did that make you feel good, or did that freak you out?
Both. I felt happy, but I also felt really scared.
Was she put off by the fact that you were white at all? I mean, are there many other white shamans out there? I mean, especially in South Africa, you think it's kind of the preserve of black South Africans?
It has been the preserve of black South Africans, but it is growing now. It is changing now, because you've got a lot of people, a lot of white people who are brought up with African people speaking African languages. And at the end of the day, as my teacher would say, we all have red blood. So it is starting to grow now. It is starting to open up, because it is the spirituality of the land. Mm-hmm. You know?
So you trained for 10 years with this lady, and now who comes to you now? Like, what type of illnesses do you help people with? And, you know, do you work hand in hand with GPs, etc.? And do people, you know, are they very open about coming to you, or is it something that they hide?
Both. I get all different kinds of situations. I think one of the biggest problems which I find or face in Europe is depression. Right. And people trying to find their life path, because people aren't in touch with their dreams. They're not in touch with their spirits. They're not in touch with their inner voice, their intuition that my grandmother and your grandmothers would have been in touch with. So my job is to help people find that inner voice, help them find their intuition, help them find the sacredness of their own dreams, literally and metaphorically speaking. So I deal with a lot of depression, and through herbs, through counseling, through rhythm and dancing, I help people to break through that depression.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, because you were saying that you're coming from South Africa, from an African culture, and you're bringing that now to Western Europe.
Yes, well, we must remember that the last 300 years, there's been priests coming from Ireland, going to Africa, bringing Catholicism, bringing Christianity. So the important thing to realize here is it's important for us to see Africa and get to know Africa a little bit better, because Africa and African spirituality has been denigrated for hundreds of years, and Africa is perceived in a very negative way. Mm-hmm. And it's partly because when the missionaries came, they misunderstood. They misunderstood African spirituality, and they thought it was paganism. They thought it was all witchcraft, and they thought it was all black magic. And that was very sad, but that legacy has stood the test of 300 years.
Well, of course, that's a perception that people have.
Yes.
That you're here to dispel.
Yes, well, I'm doing my best.
Well, tell us about, you use drums a lot in your therapies, and you can raise the spirits with these drums. So I asked you, would you play the drums today? Because we need a bit of spirit raising in this studio, don't we? So do you want to give us maybe one of the songs that you would use for, or I don't know, what have you picked out?
Well, the song I'd like to sing is called Masiembo, which means let us remember the old ways. Let us remember our humanity.
Okay.
Well, we're running out of time, so please even give us a short demo of what it is you would do on this particular song. Oh, ya Masiembo. Oh, ya
Yamasiambo, yo, yo, Yamasiambo. Oh, Yamasiambo, yo, yo, Yamasiambo. Oh, Yamasiambo, yo, 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 Masiambo. Una mandela, una manla. Una mandela, una manla. Oh, tikwa wam, oh, tikwa wam. Oh, tikwa wam. Una mandela, una manla. Una mandela, una manla. Oh, tikwa wam, oh, tikwa wam. Oh, tikwa wam.
That was great. Well
That was
done.
pretty impressive, wasn't it? Okay, well, you're going to be in Ireland for how long?
I'm going to be here for 2 months, but I will be giving a talk in Cork this coming Friday and Saturday. And people can find all the information on my website,
Which is?
africanshaman.com.
Okay.
African-shaman.com.
Okay. Well, John, a pleasure to meet you today, and thank you for raising the spirits in our studio.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Now, don't forget, if you've missed any of the programme, you can catch it online, tv3.ie/The Morning Show.
And that's it for today. Tomorrow, finding a path out of mental illness. Michelle Dalton heard voices from the age of 12 and was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Michelle will be giving us a first-hand account of her treatment and telling us why prescribing powerful drugs is not the only solution to mental health problems.
The Midday Girls are up next. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 11. Until then, have a great day. Bye-bye.